Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode. Today, we're exploring something deeply meaningful, the sacred art of presence in marriage as we hold vigil for one another. This isn't just about praying for your spouse. Yes, it's the Lenten season, but it's really about just standing with them in their struggles, carrying a little bit of their burden when the journey feels too heavy, and both of you letting God carry the burden when it's too heavy for both of you, which we know does happen sometimes also. So I was reflecting on this on Substack recently and allowing myself to sit with the tensions of holding so hard for one another that you actually feel the empathy. And it reminded me of the deep empathy, in fact, that I was reading about with my son at the same time in To Kill a Mockingbird. And this may be my last go through of teaching many kids through that book. In fact, I'm graduating, well, Melody's graduating, but I'm graduating some of the seniors that I taught when they were eighth graders this book, and now Jackson's seventh grade enjoying it. And it's a meaningful story about Atticus, who many people I notice have named their dogs after, who holds that deep empathy that we hear about, where he's really talking a lot about in that whole story, a major theme of doing just that, holding deep, deep empathy for people we don't understand that are unlike us. And honestly, sometimes that's our partner, as we know. Also, Lord of the Rings is another great reminder. And the picture I had after just so many heavy things I've walked through with couples over the last few weeks, whew, it has been so deep. I feel like that picture of Frodo, for those who remember the story, especially in the film, where he's got this heavy burden or ring around his neck. And even the necklace that's holding the ring is making his chest get really like yucky, like scars and just a lot of really roughness, and it's painful and it's aching. And that might be how some of you are feeling when you're carrying your own burdens, the burdens of others. And as much as you try to release it to God, sometimes there's still an act of loving others that costs you, right? So that's really what it means to hold vigil, is that sacred practice of standing and bearing witness to one another's suffering. And I'll tell you what, it just doesn't feel the same if you stand over somebody and you say, like, oh, we'll be praying for you. And it's meaningful. And I've said it a million times and hopefully done it a million times. But to really stand in with somebody and to stop and to pause and to reflect and to even put yourself in their shoes is entirely different. And it's the difference, in fact, between the superficial support that we sometimes need to give to others and strangers and acquaintances versus the people that we're most close to, like our partners. To truly give presence to them, to truly give beyond superficial support, it's going to require a lot more. It's going to require presence. And some of you today are feeling busy and frantic and frazzled. And that may seem like such a tall order, but I want to invite you to take a deep breath and just to allow yourself to understand that there is a mystery, I think, of Christ also within that, that when we do stop and we do pause and we do slow down and we do put the phone in another room or at least behind something, because we see that there is research even saying if it's not visible to you, you start to depend on it less. When we start to slow down and do all of these things, we do begin to see one another. And even if we feel busy, the ironic piece is it heals us to help others. It heals us to really pause and see our deepest cares and the people that we love the most versus just like, I can't, I'm busy. So you might remember those are also called turning towards behaviors in the John Gottman literature you've probably read. But I just wanted to give you that analogy as we think together with you for a moment on this brief episode about how you can hold vigil with each other, with your spouse. So you'll also remember, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, that Sam, Frodo's best friend, carried the ring for Frodo for a little while in the journey. And even though it caused some tiffs between them, which might happen for you in your marriage sometimes, it was a very important and necessary piece of the journey for Sam to do exactly that. And that is that intimate space of friendship or marriage where you see one another's deepest struggles and you don't run. And I was talking with some friends about this and how hard that is. And many of you know, as I kind of come into the marriage and family minute of this episode that I try to do sometimes, I was trying to do that with Melody recently, and I could feel myself as she was sharing how she needs to process this and say something to someone as she gets ready to graduate. And I was just like, okay, let's do it. Let's get in there and then let's run out right? Like, let's drop the bomb and then let's leave. That's friendship. And instead, of course, Melody being this grounded nine who's been doing her Enneagram work for like 8 years, her discipleship work, because she's a person of faith, she really was like, I want to sit with it. I want to wrestle with it. What do you think of me saying this? And I was taking my deep breaths with her, like, yeah, let's take our time. And she's like, I want to take my time. I want to say what I need to say. I want to come back again when I'm fresh and say what else I need to say. And then I want to let it rest. And just walking through that process in her way and not mine both slowed me down at the beginning when I needed to slow down a little bit and just hold vigil and be there with her. It also helped me to slow down later when she's like, okay, I did what I needed to do. I'm 17 years old and I'm graduating with my high school degree and my AA at the same time and doing all these shows and theater and musicals, as you can imagine, the end of the year for a kid that's that busy. She's like, I'm good. And I'm like, okay, are you sure you don't want to do more? And it's like, letting ourselves hold vigil with each other means that we also have to give some autonomy to our partners to let them solve problems the way they want to, even though we might have a different solution, or our adult children or children who are right at that cusp. So, I want to empathize with you guys if you're out there saying, oh my gosh, like, yes, you're bringing up memories of when my spouse or me or our kids do things in different ways and it's painful. But I'm reminding us all we're in this together, you guys. Sometimes we do need that breath, that pause, that prayer. And that is really hard for me, as I said in the Substack, just as even a seven, where I'm like, oh my gosh, too many emotions feel dangerous to me. And it's not the kind of danger I like that I talked about in the Enneagram and Marriage, my book, where I talk about climbing a mountain and feeling that thrill. It's more like, this is dangerous territory. Exit right away. Do not delve deep into unpredictable emotions that could overpower you. And I guess we can also hear my eight wing a little bit there too. But I notice that each of the types experiences the cost of holding vigil and of supporting a little differently. So, this is a beautiful paradoxical gift that you're going to find the peace that you actually desire by holding the presence and the joy of being with others on their painful moments as well as their joyful moments, like celebrating and grieving both. There is joy in that, and yet there's pain. But I think we all have a unique way of doing that, like I said. So I'm just going to go through the types really quickly to give you an idea for you and your partner and your family. So be listening for people that are your friends, family, yourself, your partner, so that you can just notice how each type naturally holds vigil for each other and a challenge, and what the spouse can say if this is your partner. So if you're a one, ones normally hold vigil by practical actions, by moral support. They want to make things right and they'll work tirelessly to help you if you're their partner. But their challenge is allowing imperfection in the process. That's tough for them, not trying to fix their partner's situation or feelings. So, what their spouse can say if you're married to a one is, I don't need you to solve this right now. I just need you to sit with me in it. And sometimes, as a person who is with a one, I can also tell you that it's okay to bring things to others too. If you're like, this is going to trigger my one's OCD or something, then they might not be the person to bring that to. Now, type two, the helper, of course, you naturally hold vigil by excelling at emotional attunement, anticipating the needs of those you love, and naturally being gifted at creating safe spaces, which we all love. But the challenge for you as a two is setting boundaries and not taking on your partner's emotions as your own. So, what your spouse can say to you is, you don't have to carry this for me. If you're with a two, tell them that. Just be with me while I carry it. And that way you can support me in the ways I need to be supported versus falling into it with me. It's very important. Okay, now the type three are achievers, performers out there, naturally hold vigil through action, resources, finding solutions. They want to make things happen. But the challenge is slowing down and being present without achieving or fixing. And what your spouse can say is, your presence matters more than your solutions right now. If you're feeling like they're so solution oriented that they're missing things, like, please slow down. I just need your emotional support, or I just need your presence. Type fours are artists, are creatives, individualists, naturally hold vigil. We know this is like the type to hold vigil, right? Like, they excel at emotional depth and validating the full range of feelings. They create space for authentic expression. But the challenge is not getting lost in the emotions or making the story about their own similar experiences. And what the spouse of a four can say is, thank you for creating space for my feelings without judging them. And that is so healthy to just validate the four being so good in that space, honestly. And don't forget to do the same for them. They love that. Okay, so type fives naturally hold vigil, offering thoughtful perspectives to us and careful listening. They create intellectual clarity in confusing situations. And their challenge, of course, is going to be staying emotionally engaged rather than retreating to analyze. And what their spouse can say is, I value your insights, but right now I just need your presence. And you're hearing that as a theme. And you could ask a little bit more for emotions, but I want you to understand if your five is more of a clarified logical processor, just them being with you, you could even say, oh, okay, you're not as emotional right now, but maybe some gentle touch or a word of encouragement. Allow them to hear how presence feels to you. And for sixes, naturally, sixes hold vigil, super supportive and loyal, and they're steadfast companions. So they won't abandon their spouse in a difficulty, which is great. And they anticipate their needs, potential pitfalls. But the challenge is managing their own anxiety about the situation without projecting worst case scenarios and making their spouse feel like they can't tell them or depend on them. So, what their spouse can say is, thank you for standing with me faithfully. We don't need to solve everything today. That's just a good way to remember each day has enough troubles of its own. Let's try to be supportive. And for sevens, we naturally hold vigil by bringing hope and possibility to dark situations. We love doing that. We can help our spouses see beyond the current circumstances. And our challenge is, as you heard me say earlier, staying present with painful emotions rather than trying to move quickly to the positive or the solution. So, what your spouse can say if you're a seven, or if you're the spouse to a seven, is, it's okay if we sit with this hard feeling for a while. Your presence helps even when you can't make it better. And it's okay if you need to stim or do something to just walk through that with me in movement. And for eights, challengers, they naturally hold vigil by providing protection, advocacy. They create safe spaces by standing between their spouse and whatever threatens them. But the challenge is allowing vulnerability rather than immediately moving to action or control. So what their spouse can say to them is, I feel safe with you even when you don't have to fight for me. So it's okay for you to just be with me and not get a rise out of people and allow yourself to just be with me. It's not about you right now. And for nines, there are peacemakers out there. They naturally hold vigil really well too, creating calm, accepting spaces. They excel at non-judgment and presence and seeing multiple perspectives. But their challenge is staying awake and engaged rather than numbing out or merging completely with their partner's experience. And so what their spouse can say is, your peaceful presence helps ground me. You don't have to take this on as your own. So in other words, you don't have to merge or numb out. You might just remember, this is mine. And I'll ask you if I need some specific help, but you don't have to run. And also, like I said, whatever your type is, work on yours too. So allow yourselves to ask, as we close out this mini episode, what are some specific rituals we can have around holding vigil for each other? Can we have a prayer practice where we don't just do a 1 minute prayer, but where we really beseech God together, where we really spend time on prayers? And I know we're leading a small group at our church right now using my book, The Enneagram in Marriage, and we're really opening up and leaving room and time and pausing for prayer requests. Also, the importance of asking directly for what you need is important in this process. What kind of presence really helps and serves you in that moment? And recognizing when your spouse needs you to surround them in that way. And allow yourself to make sure that if there's a physical need for support, which can break through even words, sit together, hold hands, give a nice long hug. That's beautiful. And then lastly, don't forget my favorite verse, the ultimate verse for releasing burdens, Matthew 11:28. Come to God, Christ, all who are tired and weary, and he will give you rest. That's the ultimate release of burdens right there. And you can share that together. You can pray that on your own. But it's a beautiful thing to come into the space of depths. And even if it's just for a little while, which is always the easiest for me, just to know I did it, just to breathe through it, just to pause and pray for people and myself too, it means something. So I hope that you are encouraged to practice holding vigil for one another. Ask your friends and family that you're closest to, or your partner, what do you really need me to hold with you right now? And allow yourself that release, the both and, right? You're hearing? So allow yourself to release to God as you do it. So thank you so much for your time today. I loved every minute of it. I hope you have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.